All right, hey guys, this is Facing Fiction. I'm Trenton,
And I'm Noah. Welcome back.
and today we're gonna do kind of our own little retrospective on the James Bond franchise, and kind of get into a little discussion about uh, all the talk about who the next Bond's gonna be. That's supposed to be revealed sometime this year, and kind of just give our thoughts as pretty casual fans of the franchise.
Yeah. Just a fun little, kind of casual episode. We are in no way experts at all, but pretty casual fans. We watched a bunch of the old Bond films in preparation for the newest one that just came out in 2021, and that was No Time to Die. Just out on Blu-ray and DVD. Just got it. Great film.
Oh yeah, definitely. It probably, when it comes to theater experiences, I mean, obviously, right under No Way Home,
Oh yeah.
definitely, one of the best theater experiences of like the last few years.
Well, we saw an IMAX, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the visuals popped and the sound. I thought it was an impressive film. Like visually, really stunning.
Oh yeah, it was a great movie.
But yeah, I mean, I can't say any more about it. I mean, overall, it had some downsides to it, and it wasn't the most popular due to like some story arcs and the villain overall. But I thought it was great. Definitely a good send off for Dana Craig.
Oh yeah, I don't think you could have asked for a better send off than this. And all the outrage leading up to the movie, even before it came out, it's just go and watch the movie, and I think it stays faithful to the character, and it was a great Bond movie.
Mm-hmm. And the reason, like I say, in preparation for No Time to Die, me and Trent actually tried, or at least attempted to actually sit down and watch every single original Bond film leading up to this. How many are at this point?
This would
20?
be, so Quantum of Solace is 22, and then
Skyfall,
Skyfall's 23, 20, so 25. There are
Inspector.
25.
Inspector.
Oh yeah,
That's
so 25.
25, jeez.
Yeah, there are 25 of these movies now.
we quickly learned that's not possible.
Oh yeah, especially as much as we respect a lot of those older ones. Some of them are pretty dated, and they require a lot of
how would you say this? Like, not to be rude, but like they're dated. They're the action, the visuals, the design, and the movements. They're old. They're slower back then. There's less you can do on screen with stunts and all that. And it's just a product of its time. So they were hard to watch through times.
Yeah, especially in a marathon
Yeah.
type style.
I would not recommend it. It was hard to sit through each one. So eventually during COVID, we were trying to do that, and we gave up on that pretty quickly.
So we kind of just broke it down, and we kind of watched some of like our favorites of the oldies, and some of like what we saw a lot online were the essential must-see movies of the entire franchise. So we got a pretty like general understanding of what Bond was all about, and what it means to a lot of people throughout different iterations of the character through all the actors that have played him.
Each actor brings something to their own role, as well as the time period and what was popular in that era. So each one on its own, it has good movies for each actor in each decade that takes place in. But for this actual video, we're going to be focusing on our favorite James Bond movies individually from the oldies. So in terms of oldies, we're kind of keeping in mind about Timothy Dalton and previous is what we consider oldies, kind of that 70s and earlier vibe. And we consider more Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig the newer era or iteration of James Bond. So, Trent, what's your top Bond movie for the oldies?
The one that stood out to me when we were going through and marathoning the ones that we saw as essential, I would probably say would be On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one that actually stood out to me quite a bit. And for me, this one, I really it's one that I don't really hear a lot about. I always hear about Goldfinger and Thunderball and, GoldenEye and all that. But, On Her Majesty's Secret Service stood out to me because it brought up things that, I didn't see a whole lot of in the other movies that we had watched during our little marathon, like the idea of James Bond falling in love, or just I really like the scenery of like in the snow and the skiing, and I really did dig, because this was right between Sean Connery and Roger Moore.
Yep.
And I really loved some of the one-liners that were in this.
Oh yeah.
Especially he branched off, and just the ending was a lot more emotionally like resonant than I was used to a lot of these older movies that we found to be kind of slower and maybe a bit corny, honestly.
I guess although this one still had the corny aspects to it, it honestly, rather than those aspects hindering the movie, they kind of played off them really well is what I thought. They had good one-liners that were funny enough and serious enough to be enjoyable, entertaining, and also they tackled some like actual real responsibility and emotions within Bond. Something that's only common nowadays, but back then it wasn't. For those that don't know, On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out in 1969, and this was the one and only movie to feature George Lazenby as Bond. He only got one movie. This is the one he did. Honestly, he shined in it very well.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a blast watching this guy as Bond, and I kind of wish that he could have came back to do more. I mean, I don't know the full story on why he didn't come back, but I mean, like I said, I was having a blast watching this movie. It's I would say it's a lot more of a you can sit back and relax and watch this movie. All the other like Sean Connery ones that came before, I'd say you got to pay pretty like close attention. Not that you don't have to pay attention to the plot of this movie, but it's just a lot more of an easygoing film.
Yeah, it was definitely enjoyable and kind of a nice pace. And then not to mention Diana Rigg as character Tracy's love life, kind of unexpected to where she was a daughter of this rich kind of mafia guy that suddenly he meets and then ends up falling for and rescues her. And then in the end, kind of completely unlike his character, he gets married.
Right.
Like really, really unexpected, yet honestly great to see. And, rest in peace, Diana Rigg. She just passed away not too long ago. Phenomenal actress.
And, what we were saying happens with the end of that movie, I feel like completely kind of solidifies that character of James Bond as somebody who doesn't really have that, like, much of a connection to really anyone in his life. And it kind of shows, like, this is why. And, with being a movie that is, as corny as this is and as, like, goofy with, like, the one-liners and stuff, I mean, which is great. I love all that stuff. But just to tackle some really emotional subject matter like this and be able to like balance all of it really well, I just thought was great.
Exactly, well balanced film. I mean, the humor on top of the action of the time and the emotion and love and story, honestly, well balanced. The ending
on the end, you can't forget about the end battle when all of MI6 they show up
on
and
helicopters and attack the ski base at the top of that mountain.
It was very impressive, especially for being 1969. Like I was having such a fun time watching this scene.
It was good, and then almost the one thing that kind of sets us apart is again the love story within it, and then they get married at the end, and out of nowhere, like the last 5 minutes of the film, they're driving along. And Diana Rigg just gets assassinated right there. Spoiler alert. But wow. Unexpected, but it also kind of just hammers in the character trait that Bond, as a character, although he has these emotions, these feelings, he can't let himself get attached because bad things always happen to the ones he loves.
Well, what you say about that, about how he can't let himself feel, it's a very vulnerable scene because it's one of the first times we actually get to see him truly feel something, like when he tells that officer outside of the car, like, oh, she's just resting right now, she's just sleeping, and it's truly a heartbreaking scene. It definitely did not end on an upbeat. It was super surprising and jaw-dropping.
It was. Not to mention, I know from the ones we watched, I had met Spectre and Blofeld before one of the movies. This was the first one where you actually met his like number one villain, Blofeld, as the head of Spectre in this film. So
I'm actually not sure. Is this the first one that Blofeld is introduced through, or is he introduced in any of the Sean Connery movies? If I'm not mistaken, I think this might be
like
the first movie in the franchise.
Casual fans. We don't know a whole lot. I could have sworn he was introduced a little bit, or at least mentioned. I know he's mentioned off screen a little bit in Sean Connery. He might have been shown in one of them. Then again, though, we didn't watch every single one of them. It's hard to remember.
Yeah.
But at least went over the fact that this is the first one where you, as your first viewing,
definitely. And character. He, very entertaining villain, definitely.
Oh, even though talk about the love story and all that, but what about the actual giant world-ending plot, which was Blofeld taking all these girls to a special clinic in the mountains. And really,
perfect setting for James Bond.
Bunch of fucking women all alone. He's on a playground, his emotions, and he just met his future wife. So what could go wrong?
The love of his life.
Great plot, but Blofeld's trying to give these women, treat them for fake diseases that they have, and instead he's actually giving them harmful bacteria, infections and viruses. He wants to spread to the whole world. He's going to send them to every corner of the globe. As far as
very similar to kind of what they did in No Time to Die. I mean, they had their own spin on it, but that was kind of in a way. I felt paying homage to this movie, but back to the topic.
Well, speaking of the whole plot of just ending the world through infections and viruses and spreading all that, I thought for the time it was a unique idea. They didn't actually show the virus is getting out, anybody dying, it's spreading, but it was serious enough for you to wow, that's kind of a cool idea. Now not a popular one for 1969 at a time, as far as world-ending plots. You look at, ones to come and ones before, they always focused on simple things, but a whole world-ending kind of infection and plot to end the world was kind of different and cool, which is why I like it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was, it was a Bond movie. It did its job.
It did its job. Good point. Okay, so before we move on, let's just go ahead and take a small intermission.
Okay, so before we move on to Noah, and he talks about a Bond movie that stuck out to him in the oldies, we're gonna dive into some questions about just to get to know us and kind of why we started this podcast, and just some basic fun film questions.
So basic first round questioning. I'm going to start with, what movie are you looking forward to the most coming out this year, 2022? There's quite a list.
I mean, from what I've seen in trailers, obviously the Batman and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness looks great. But what I think I'm most curious about is probably just Ari Aster's new movie, Disappointment Boulevard. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I don't really know.
Disappointment Boulevard? I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know really anything about this movie. But it's starring Joaquin Phoenix, actually. And it comes out,
Disappointment Boulevard.
it comes out this year. And, we've both seen Hereditary, Midsummer, as plenty of film buffs have seen as well.
The Northman by Ari Aster too?
It might be.
I thought so, but again, I'm just speculating here.
But I mean,
that's
obviously
also coming out this year.
Oh yeah, and both those movies, beautifully made. I absolutely adore Midsummer, and I love Hereditary as well. I mean, Midsummer, I think I might like just a tiny bit more. It just. Both those movies just make you feel some type of way, I guess. That's the only way I can explain them. And I just, I just can't wait to see see what this guy does next, and actually get to sit down, hopefully on a, just late at night in a movie theater.
Yeah, definitely. As for me, I mean, like we said, the list for movies coming out this year is really long. There's a lot of big stuff coming out, a lot of blockbusters. And I don't quite know which one I'm looking forward to the most, because there's so many. And so I guess the ones I want the most are the Batman and honestly the Northman. We just mentioned it. So it's actually by Robert Eggers. another person who's worked with A24 before.
A24.
A24. Oh, crap. A24, my bad. We have Robert Eggers, Northman. And then on top of that, I'd say the Batman. I mean,
we can't go wrong with that.
No, we're huge Batman nerds. I mean, Dark Knight's right there. We love Batman. Any of those.
Oh, absolutely. And Matt Reeves is obviously a very promising director. I mean, we just recently sat down and rewatched Let Me In, and you know, it was arguably a better adaptation from Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
You know, you could. Yeah, I could see anyone making that point, and yeah, I might have to agree with them, honestly. Very, I mean, obviously just dark, but also it had just a lot of like just real human emotion and kind of like a coming of age feel to it. It's just, I think this guy has, obviously Matt Reeves, he has a lot of potential to tackle any kind of subject matter he wants and just make it, you know, visually stunning and just a beautiful movie. I think it's gonna be.
I'm looking real forward to seeing what Matt Reeves does with this, because I mean, based on the trailers alone, we got the first trailer like a year ago, right? And that one already blew me away just with how violent it is. And then we just got two more, the Bat and the Cat, and then one on Penguin. I mean, it's looking awesome.
Well, going back to that first trailer, I'll be the first to admit I was very doubtful of the casting of Robert Pattinson, but that first trailer, you know, I have to be honest, it made me eat my words completely. I think he's gonna kill it as this iteration of Batman and Bruce Wayne.
It looks badass. All right, so let's bring up what movie. Well, we can go through this two ways. Either, what's the first film you like vividly remember, like absolutely being in love with, wanting to analyze, wanting to watch over and over again?
Well, for me, that's a pretty easy answer. I'd say the first movie that really just got me into talking about movies on just a more in-depth level would probably be Steven Spielberg's 1975 Jaws. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
right there.
it's probably it's easily my favorite movie of all time. I just have nostalgia is a huge factor of it, but for being a shark movie, it is way better than it has any right to be. And I just remember at 6 years old thinking, how did they get a real shark to do all these things in this movie? It was just absolutely crazy. And I just remember by the end of the movie, I had never had this feeling before, but like my heart by the end was just pumping and pumping. And when it was over, I just felt genuinely excited, and I was pacing, and I'd never gotten that feeling from a movie before, and that's what did it to me. It showed me that movies are a lot more than just fun popcorn flicks. That there's a lot more going on there.
Hard to say. I know for a fact the first movie I ever actually saw that I remember vividly was Monsters Inc. I mean, Disney classic. That's the first one I remember, like as like a 4-year-old or something, watching it, loving it, and then from there on, just getting into movies a lot. I couldn't tell you which one really got me into analyzing films and filmmaking in general a lot. One that comes to mind though, that I remember seeing in theaters multiple times, wanting to constantly talk about it and watch it over and over again, that would be Star Wars.
Revenge of the Sith?
Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. Star Wars 3, Revenge of the Sith. Oh, I love that movie. It came out when I was, 8 or 9. Blew me away. Dude, visually, the angst, the dialogue, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker duking it out. I mean, badass film. Every single moment of that film, although it gets its haters and its doubts, I mean, best one of the the pre-sequel series.
Right. And from the perspective of a kid, especially a kid whose parents had showed them the original trilogy a countless number of times, and taken and brought home movies from Blockbuster like Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and just having Star Wars fights over and over, and just to see it come to this just crazy climax of like what you were raised on,
crazy finale,
leading to the trilogy that like your parents had just shown you over and over again.
Like what I think set it apart was, it's one thing to have your parents show you the original trilogy, all right, 4, 5, and 6, and then I don't remember actually watching 1 or 2 in the theaters, but I can easily recall seeing Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and that kind of what sets it apart. You know, you've spent all this time watching the original trilogy, and then you watch the first two, but now you actually go to a theater, remember seeing the chair, remember the experience, and it hits different. I mean, it's the easiest I can say it. Great film.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Last question for intermission. So, what was your first, I guess, iconic like Hollywood crush?
Oh, I think easily for anyone around our age,
Our
it would
age.
have to be Scarlett Johansson in Iron Man 2 as Natasha Romanoff. Okay, so for me, what my top 5 would be, well, first I actually want to give an honorable mention, and my honorable mention would probably be the movie that we just talked about, Goldfinger. Like I said, it's probably about as definitive of a Bond movie as you can get, and I understand why it's objectively, the fan favorite of a lot of those oldies, but it just didn't quite make the cut to, my top 5.
How dare you?
I know, but, number
Messed
5
up,
for
man.
me would it's got to be GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan, and I love Sean Bean as a villain. He's got a hilarious death in this movie. James Bond is driving around the street on a tank in this movie. It's outrageous. I think Pierce Brosnan just shows like he really proves himself as Bond for his first outing in this one. And it was our introduction to the end that lasted all the way up to Skyfall. And, even though her appearance is brief, it's great. And, what's not to love about this movie? It's bonkers.
Yeah.
And number 4 would be On Her Majesty's Secret Service, actually.
That's a good place.
Like I said, for all the reasons, I just love the setting of this movie. I love the one-liners. I love how it was able to balance a lot of campiness and also just real, genuine emotional stakes and just make a great movie in the end and just show us a lot of stuff we hadn't seen from a Bond movie before.
I think we may have the exact same top 3. I'm pretty sure we do. So I'm going to do my 4, 5, and 4 now.
Okay.
So number 5 for me is... Actually, we might have the exact same ranking almost. My number 5 for me is GoldenEye. For Pierce Brosnan's first outing, great movie. I honestly love it. Like, I think what you said, it showcases a lot of his talents. A strong first movie, great villain, great plot. It was good. Number 4 for me is then where I put in my oldie, Goldfinger. Love it, iconic. I'm watching it over and over again. Great movie. And then number 3, I'm thinking we're both gonna put Casino Royale here.
No, actually,
No?
for number 3,
Really?
I'm actually gonna put Skyfall.
Dang. So I was close.
Well, I'm be honest with these top 3.
It's
they
hard.
they could all just depending on the day of the week. Honestly, they could all just change. I mean, I love all 3.
They're all
of them
going to
so
be
much.
Daniel Craig movies.
Oh, yeah.
But they
Spoiler
do
alert.
flip flop a lot. So like, and number 3 is Skyfall. I think my number 3 is Casino Royale for me.
Okay, and
Number
my
2.
brief thoughts of Skyfall. I mean, what hasn't been said about this movie? The time it came out, it's just the cinematography is beautiful, and this was my actual introduction to the character of James Bond. It came out in 2012. I was only 12 years old, and I went to see it in the theater, and I just remember being blown away. I mean, from a lot of what I had heard about James Bond and just seeing caught a glimpse on TV. I wasn't so sure, but they were able to just make a James Bond movie that was for just everybody while also at the same time staying loyal to the fans.
Well, they revitalized the franchise with Skyfall. I mean, they got everyone back into it because this is a movie that's set in stone. James Bond isn't just action.
Mm-hmm.
It can have emotion. It can have good cinematography, good visuals, good direction.
Great rebound from the
Excellent
poorly
rebound.
received Quantum of Solace.
As for Casino Royale, I mean, kind of like GoldenEye, this is a powerhouse film that's set in stone. Daniel Craig is, in fact, a good James Bond. There's a lot of controversy surrounding him being chosen as the next one because James Bond, he's too short for Daniel Craig. He's blonde, he has blue eyes. That's not our James Bond. But nah, this movie, it's set in stone. Daniel Craig is, in fact, a phenomenal James Bond. The opening scene, intense, fast-paced action, a great plot, not too hard to follow, and everything makes sense. Really revamped and did much better the original Casino Royale from the 60s that honestly is one of the worst ones ever rated as far as Bond franchise, according to critics. But Well done film. I love Mads Mikkelsen as the villain and the whole.
He's always gonna be great.
Oh well, even the intensity surrounding as simple a scene as just them sitting around a poker table and playing these high stakes games.
So intense.
You would think it'd be boring. Like, who wants to watch that? But
one of the highlights of the whole franchise.
Yes, like literally the facial expressions, the events happening on the side.
A little tidbit.
Cuts.
Before I had gone back to revisit this movie in our marathon, I wasn't quite thinking about the poker scene until it happened, and it was great. But we had actually been playing a lot of poker ourselves, like amongst our friends, so that just made us get that much more into the scene.
We finally understood.
We knew what was we kind of knew what was going on.
We finally realized like how much they were in fact losing as far as money and bets and all that. But yeah, great one. So number 2.
My turn.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my number 2 definitely is gonna be No Time to Die. Like we brought up earlier, just a great conclusion to the franchise. I mean, each action scene of the movie feels like it differentiates itself enough from the last one, and there's just so much to love about this movie. It's visually just stunning. Like you said, we saw it in IMAX, and it was
pop right off.
Definitely like one of the best theater experiences that I can recall in recent years. And it was a movie that I felt I felt like I could have cried at the end. It was just so emotionally impactful, and
Same.
I never thought that they would be able to reach that deep with a Bond movie.
Yeah.
And, they did it.
Number 2 for me, same thing, No Time to Die. Only issue is really the villain. It felt weak. The whole concept of wanting to, spoilers, like, infect the entire world with this artificially created virus and all that and kill everybody. Really kind of the same, like I mentioned before, as on Her Majesty's Secret Service. But I just felt the whole reason behind wanting to destroy the world through this virus was kind of not well explained. The villain's motives were as far as visuals, cinematography, the action, and the scenery, as well as the emotional story, I thought knocked it out of the park. The love life, this one calls back on thoughts to On Her Majesty's Secret Service and the emotion behind that. I thought that's a great send-off for Daniel Craig. He deserves a phenomenal ending to his career as James Bond, and they pulled it off, I thought. Really emotional ending. You leave the theater thinking like, wow, this is it. And I wish I had more.
Oh yeah, it hit definitely. Number 1 for me is, it has to be Casino Royale. Like, this is definitely one of the best action movies I've ever seen personally. And it took a lot of just all the great elements from each of the movies that came before. Like we brought up earlier, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the ending is very comparable to like that movie's ending. And, just like we were saying, like with the high stakes poker game that you would imagine would be so boring, Mads Mikkelsen is just, such a great and iconic villain. And it gave the franchise the exact like revamping that I feel like it needed from like a lot of like the corniness and just 90s cheese. And I have no issues with this movie at all. And I just thought it was a great like kind of like an origin story for James Bond, because by the end of this movie, like when you're watching, you hear that theme come on, you just get that feeling of seeing like everything he'd been through. Like he is finally he's James Bond now.
He starts out the film not even James Bond yet. Then he gets it, and the entire time he's kind of building himself into it, but he doesn't know if he is James Bond yet. He's working towards it, and it ends with the theme song, and
Yeah.
My number 1 is Skyfall. I thought Sam Mendes as the director knocked it out of the park. He just revitalized interest in the franchise overall. I mean, Casino Royale, very good. But then you have Quantum of Solace where it dies back down again, and then Skyfall just upped the ante entirely. Really got audiences to go and see it. It broke out in theaters and it was just a massive hit. And then you have it die down again in Spectre, and then it finally come back for a strong ending with No Time to Die. So, Craig's had an odd career with just top tier, bottom, top, bottom, top.
Well, I'd
again.
say, like, for the most part, almost all the actors have
Yeah.
their hits and misses with the Bond franchise. But, I mean, I feel like at least I can confidently say he's got the best ones.
I think the reason this sits at number one for me is really just Sam Mendes' direction and the actual stylistic approach to shooting a James Bond film. And on top of that, I think Javier Bardem as Silva, the main villain, kind of blew me away.
Yes.
He was very, very strong. Like, compared to other ones we've seen, they were always good, but I thought he was the first one where I was like, this is an extreme acting. This is a man on a vengeful path, and he's scary. I like it a lot.
Would you say he's your favorite Bond villain?
Yeah, I'd say overall,
Oh, yeah.
he's my favorite Bond villain. That's why I have this at number one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very
Definitely.
well done. All right, guys, that wraps it about up. Any thoughts on who you think the next Bond will be? They've just started. They announced. MGM announced.
Well, let's look into it. Let's see what some of the
MGM
some of the
announced
talk is.
early 2022. They said they would begin a search for the next James Bond actor.
That's just such a loaded question, though, for me when you ask who do I want the next James Bond to be. I mean, honestly, the best choice probably will just be somebody that not a lot of people are familiar with, but I know Noah has his top pick in mind.
So we have a few lists here. Top perspectives, like fan choices. We have Tom Hardy, Henry Cavill, Idris Elba. Oh boy, how do I pronounce this one?
Regé-Jean Page.
Regé-Jean
Sorry if I
Page.
mispronounced that. Oh, Lashana Lynch.
Cillian Murphy. Sam Heughan. I don't know that one. Richard Madden. Tom Hiddleston, Dev Patel even. James Norton. I don't know him as an actor very much. Henry Golding. John Boyega. Dan Stevens. Daniel Kaluuya. Clive Standen.
Oh no.
What? The Rock is on this list. I don't know how he got there. I don't know. There's a lot of good options. For me, personal opinion, I think he should be an English actor.
Oh yeah.
I think that's where its roots are from. I think it should be an English actor no matter what. But a lot of good options. Personally, if I had to pick, I would like it to be Richard Madden. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan. I think he would do a great job in the role. He's the right age, the right build. He has a good look to him. I think he'd be good. I could also consider Cillian Murphy as well. I think he'd be a good option. What about you?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's nobody that I have in mind where I just think that's Bond, like that has to be the next
Yeah.
James Bond. Like I said, it most likely the best choice will end up being somebody that I'm not super familiar with, that just fits just everything that character is. I mean, but Richard Madden, I really think if they casted him, you wouldn't hear any fuss from me about it. I love Game of Thrones as well, and I think he did a great job in that, and I think he's a great leading man. In that show he showed how he plays, he's really great at playing a leader, obviously, and he's English,
do it.
and he's got a good look to him. He's about in his 30s, somewhere around there, and
I don't know.
he's at the right age to carry a franchise for a while.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching. This is Facing Fiction. See you next time.
Thank you.